In your campaign, you've criticized schools for supporting transgender students in health classes that recognize diverse gender identities. Why do you see this as harmful as opposed to promoting tolerance?
Well, I really view it as an issue for parents. You know, these are issues that need to be discussed in our privacy of our own lives as among families. We do not need government bureaucrats to be stepping over the rights of parents to be teaching, this kind of education to our children. When I say children, it's exactly that. What we're hearing is that kids as young as 5 years old are starting to learn some of this curriculum. And let's talk about what is essentially happening here. What we have is the Oregon Department of Education that is renaming comprehensive sex education as gender identity. Why would they do this? Easy. To sidestep the notification of parents that are required by Oregon law. What they're doing is they're renaming this education so that parents no longer have the right to make the decision to opt their children out of these education deals going on in our schools. And I think it's a complete disgrace. We need parents to be empowered and have the control over the future of our kids' education, not government bureaucrats.
What are you going to do about all our homeless and the crime it brings to our communities?
But we're the only candidate in this race that's addressing the criminal element living on our streets. In 2017, over 50% of the people arrested in Portland were experiencing homelessness. And it's not the folks that want help that are out there stealing all these catalytic converters. What's happening is we need to triple the size of the state police. In the 1970s, we had 30 officers per 100,000 people. That number today is 8. We need to stand with our police, and we need to be tough on the criminal elements living on our street.
Mayor Pulliam, of the 9 governors I have known during 40 years of covering Oregon politics, only 2 did not serve in the legislature. While that may or may not be an asset to that office, the fact is that governors do have to deal with the legislature in one way or other to get a budget through, to get bills that he or she wants to get through. What is your experience? What is your plan to deal with the legislature that you have not served in?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. And I think Oregonians now more than ever are sick and tired of the politics that are going on in Salem. And you think about the last 2 years in our lives, the lockdowns, the shutdowns. We had small business owners across the state. They were looking around for where their representatives, where their senators were. These folks were MIA. As mayor, I know people at the ground level. When businesses go out of business, there's a chance I know that business owner. I know the kids in our school. Now, you talk about past experience. I actually served as staff through 2 legislative sessions as a legislative director for a couple of representatives as well as a senator. I certainly know how this all comes together and works at the state level. In fact, I'd argue that I'm the only person on this stage that has a grasp of politics at the state level, at the local level, and the regional level, working with partners and stuff as a mayor through the community of Sandy, working with Clackamas Regional Government, Metro, and others like that as well.
This one comes from Corrine Waterbury in Newburgh. She asks of each candidate, do you believe the results of the 2020 presidential election were fair?
I can tell you from personal experience that the ballots that were turned in that were fraudulent were not counted, and people should have cause to have faith in their elections in 2022.
President Joe Biden was named the president, and that's the decision of the election.
President Trump lost, and Mr. Biden is the President of the United States.
Well, Republicans, do you hear those answers? They're the same as a week ago. Biden, Biden, Biden. They all 3 say Biden won. And here's the deal. This is why it's important. First of all, are these the same remarks you're getting in Republican lecture halls when they travel the state and answer your questions? Additionally, if you can't trust a conservative candidate to stand up and speak truth to power here, now, in a primary, you certainly can never trust those people to stand up as your next governor and to stand by our conservative principles as our next governor. The 2020 election was absolutely fraudulent. When you think about the turn at the last minute to vote by mail across the country, the fact that even courts in Pennsylvania have said that it sidestepped their constitutional requirement for in-person voting, the Hunter Biden stuff and the covering up of that scandal, and now it seemed to be true. You better believe it was fraudulent, and I'm the only one who's willing to say it. Yeah, from the question to the answer, it's completely bogus. I mean, Christine did not lead the walkout on cap and trade. Many will remember we had courageous Republicans in the state Senate who walked out and led the walkout. Christine in the House, they stayed back. Then we may remember that those same senators walked again. And Christine in the House, they simply did not walk until the next day. So if we're going to say we're leading, let's make sure we lead from the front, not from behind.
Christine?
So this is how you know that Mr. Pulliam has no experience inside the building and wasn't actually there. You know, when it came time to fight the fight on cap and trade, it is a tough decision to bring an entire caucus along, to make the decision to throw yourself in the back of your car, leave your state, and fight for something that you believe in, that's right for Oregonians. I led the fight to stop cap and trade. It was not an easy decision, and I had the support of my Republican caucus to do it.
So are we leading the caucus, or is the caucus leading us, Christine? Which one is it?
Either way, I can guarantee that Mr. Pulliam has led no one anywhere.
Hey, I was in a truck with the convoy. I wasn't in the chambers of Salem.
What books and curriculum will you limit in K through 12 schools, or would you?
Yeah, I don't know about individual books, but I can tell you this. On day one, we will sign an executive order banning critical race theory from being taught in our schools. We will absolutely, on day one, stand up against the comprehensive sex education and gender identity that's being taught to our young children as young as 5 in our schools. We'll stand up to the extreme woke left on the education that they're trying to pummel their values and their beliefs onto the rest of us. But really, the answer to this is we're not going to look to really ban books. We're going to look for school choice, to empower parents to have the opportunity to decide the schooling for their children based on the personalized and customized learning types of their kids. And so then, as parents, if we don't like what's being taught in our schools or what book our children bring home, we get to make the decision as to what schools we send our own kids to.
Stan Pulliam, what issue facing Oregon do you believe is most overlooked and not talked about enough?
That it's all the extreme woke left Democrats' fault. The fact that we've had nearly 4 decades of one-party control in the state, from the governor's office, the vast majority of the time in the state legislature, the Multnomah County, the Portland City Council, all extreme left control. And then you look at the ramifications of that. The mass homelessness and crime that has infested every corner of this state. Yours and my children go to some of the worst schools in this country. Despite the fact that we're in the top tier of what we spend, our kids go to schools ranked 46 out of 50 in overall education, 47th out of 50 in graduation rates. It's time for new leadership. It's time for a change. And if we think as Republicans we're going to overturn 40 years of control by electing another milquetoast establishment candidate, I'm worried that you're sorely mistaken. We need new leadership here in the state of Oregon.
Rural Oregon feels forgotten. There are even some parts that want to join Idaho. They feel that forgotten. Specifically, what would you do to include them more in what goes on in the state, specifically?
One is let them know that they're not forgotten. Get out of Salem. This campaign, we got on a bus tour that really, in all reality, is just my mom and dad's RV. And what you're talking about is true. We asked 2 questions. Who here considers Oregon to be your home? All the hands go up. Next question, who's talking about leaving the state? All the hands go up. What they want is individual control. They want empowerment of their own communities. They're tired of Portland politicians forcing their values and their beliefs onto us. Let's make the decisions local and individualized. Well, Christine Drazen was right about one thing tonight. I've not been in the halls of the Salem Capitol and in Salem for these last several years. I keep hearing the names of Tina Kotek and Kate Brown mentioned tonight, but every time she went to war, she lost. Well, I'm tired of losing. It's time to start winning. Our movement began one afternoon in our small town in a diner with small business owners during the lockdowns. We looked the folks in the eye that day and we decided that we were going to stand up and fight back. We've been fighting every day since. You saw us fight when we were the first to stand up and call out Portland for what it was, a culture of criminality. We continue to stand up and fight as we stand side by side with parents. We believe Republicans are looking for a fighter. We believe squarely we're that guy. We would be honored to have your vote in this May election.